Hey, welcome to True Grit Crime. I am your host, Mamaw Gritty. Um, we are here for round two of our talks with Christine, who is the former Delphi defense investigator for Richard Allen. And I just want to say, beginning, I am very, very overwhelmed. Christine is very overwhelmed with the beautiful support and positive reaction that everybody has kind of had while she's been able to share her experience so far. I just want to say we do want to keep that forum going. This is a safe space. So please remember that we are all adults here, and that we're all here to just seek answers and truths. She is speaking for herself, and so just make sure that everybody is respectful. Thank you so much for everybody coming in and listening. And with that, I'm going to go on and bring Miss Christine on. So.
Sorry, I disappeared on you for a second there. I was trying to rotate my camera and it wasn't working.
No worries. Oh, no worries.
So we still have a delay again tonight,
huh? We're gonna go to probably about 10:45 tonight. Yeah. Yeah, I have a delay, because I told you that the sound in my laptop is out, so I listen to it secondhand, and I guess my internet has a delay anyway, so I'm sorry. I apologize. But yeah, I'm just really excited about the response that we have received so far. We have so many more questions that people would like to go ahead and still have answered. And I feel like because this is so new and because you haven't been able to talk for so long, it feels like you just don't know where to start, because you and I have not always been on equal footing when it comes to our discussions. So I want to try to get the listeners questions out of the way, and then I really kind of want to ask you some deeper stuff. We were able to hear from your former coworker, Erica, and I really kind of want to ask you about your opinion and your thoughts about that as well, if we can talk about some of that as well tonight. So thank you again so much for coming on. And I think we could probably share with everybody that, like, you and I talked about this earlier, and because there's such a voluminous amount of information that you and I have to talk about and share and get through, we are going to start making this a series. So I don't know how long the series is going to take, or how often, we're going to be able to do it. I don't know, like a couple times a week, whatever. We'll work out the kinks, or if we got to do it every night, certain nights where we have that availability, and then take a couple days off, whatever works. So we are going to be here. We are going to keep working through all of this information. I also was in the chat today, like in the comment section, and somebody in the comment section made a really good suggestion, but because it was something that I was looking at for maybe the future. But as you and I start to get through the voluminous amount of information, I would like to try to bring in some of the other creators that have really worked to help bring forth this information, so we can all kind of collaborate. I know that All Eyes has been having like this wanting to ask you questions about different things, and I know you worked on the Westville report. So I would love to be able to give back to All Eyes about that as well. so that she can talk to you about that information. And yeah, like, I just want to kind of like do what we can to try to get the information out of there. And everybody has their niche, and so they're so talented and everything in so many different areas. So we just got to do what we can to put the information that we have put forth to use as best as possible, so that we can spread the awareness.
There have been
Because
so
most
many.
importantly, I mean, you guys were silenced for so long. And so I'm sorry.
That's okay. There have been so many people that have helped
Go
along the
ahead.
way that I'm open to speaking to anyone really that wants to, that has questions that they have, you know, if they want to go over some stuff, we can do that. I, of course, adore All Eyes. I've never met her, but that work is really solid. So um, I would welcome that, you know. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, so I guess we need to start diving into the questions that we still had that were left over from last night. And then the comment section was filled with a ton of questions. And maybe you can help me with the comment section. Like if you could go to the comment section from last night, or I don't know how we're going to do this, because I was writing them down, but then trying to go back and forth. I should have been a little bit more organized today, but so
I
much,
couldn't
so much,
see,
because
but
yeah, my
I can
brain
see
is just
tonight's
a
chat,
million
but I
miles a
can't
minute.
see last night's. I'm not very good yet, but I'm in this StreamYard.
No, I have the messages from last night's, but
Okay, good.
okay. Uh, I'll have to figure out how I'm going to do this,
Okay.
but I'll figure it out. I
Okay.
promise I will. Even if we got to come back and whatever. Okay. So, earlier today, I had an emailed question come in. And so I know you talked maybe a smidget about your background last night. I know you talked about being within the field of private investigation, as well as family advocacy for victims of missing and murdered individuals. So somebody was asking if maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, about your background. Let us know the different things that you worked on, what your specialty is, things of that nature.
Sure. I guess one of the first things that I did, like before I even really started dabbling in missing persons and homicides, I was a CASA advocate. So my training and advocacy work really started with children that had been put into the foster care system through no fault of their own. And it's a court-based system we have here in Indiana, where children that are deemed to be a CHINS case, which means children in need of services. So if they are removed from their home and placed in an alternate placement, it's a really cool program. Like when you go to like your average CPS case, mom gets a lawyer, dad gets a lawyer, the Department of Family and Children get a lawyer, but the child doesn't, right? So you have this child that floats through this system like a ping pong ball at the whim of DCS mom, dad, and the judge. So a long time ago, it's been, probably 10, 20 years ago, Indiana was like, we need a way to get a lawyer for the children. Well, there just isn't money to pay for a lawyer for every child that is in the system. So they came up with the CASA program. So the judge that's on the case sends that any case where the child is in alternate housing, they send it to the CASA program. CASA program puts an advocate on the case, and then it is your job to kind of be the intermediary between the court and the Department of Family and Children and the parents, and you make sure that each entity is doing their job, so you know that the child is getting every service that has been ordered for them to receive, and to make sure that they're getting every opportunity that should be afforded to them. And that keeps kids from getting lost in the system. Like, you don't hear about it much anymore, but back in the day, you used to hear about kids that were put in foster care, and then 5-10 years down the line, they'd be like, hey, do you know what happened to Jimmy Jane? Because mom's out of prison now, and she would really like to have Jimmy Jane back. And they would be like, oh, well, we don't know where that kid is. So, because they would send them off to a foster home, and the foster parents, it was almost like these kids just got lost in the system. So that's kind of how it started. And I realized, oh, I like this work. So then when I was in college, I was studying, I was a triple major because I'm a glutton for punishment. And I was studying a combination of medicine and chemistry and biology. And an officer's son went missing in the community in which I live. And the department that officer worked in was not helpful for even one of their own. So I heard that story and I was like, well, shit, somebody needs to help out. I think I'll help out. So I did. And that was my first case. And then, it kind of started to take on a life of its own. And I always feel like I tell people, once you experience that thing it is you're meant to do for the rest of your life, you'll know, well, that was that thing. I had been touched as a teenager. One of my friends in high school went missing, and she was later found murdered. And her case had gone cold for a very, very, very long time before that case got solved. And I think that having a friend that was murdered when we were children, that leaves an effect. And so I just kind of dabbled here and there, and I took on one case, and then I took on a case where a teenager, barely teenager, disappeared with her teacher's aide. And we chased her across the freaking country, man. So it went from there. Like, we've made mistakes along the way, and I have not always handled myself in the best way, because when you're dealing with like the scum that you would like to throttle because you know that they've done something really vicious, you lose your patience and say not kind things, and it changes you as a person every time that you go through some horrible experience, right? But through the years, as they've gone by, we've got more polished, and I've learned to temper my words, and I've learned to temper my temper, right? I'm a lot slower to anger now, and I can sit back and take a deep breath, and me taking on this case was not something that, it's not like I went after this case. This case was brought to me. I'm glad that it was. It's something that I'm glad that I did. I can now say that.
So when
Go ahead.
when did you start working on this case?
So it was early in the
Like, how did it
spring.
come to you?
So when Jensen Investigations got word that they were going to be the agency that was hired, he then started looking for um, people to work the case. And he had been on television with Erica enough times that they had a good relationship. And so he hired or he approached Erica. And Erica said, well, you can have me if you take Christine too. And so that's kind of how we all three started working. So when I entered this case, it was as a PI for Jensen Investigations. So that role changed later on to
Okay,
someone else.
go ahead.
So, and then by the end, I was just consulting, which is a way of saying working semi-independently, sending in everything that I have, you know, but I didn't actually work. I did, but I didn't. It's this weird gray area, right? So we were hired experts, just like any other courtroom expert would be. So I investigated the case. I sent in everything that I had. I still had to follow all the same rules of any other court kind of expert, kind of. It's confusing, but that's how it is. That's just kind of how that goes. And now, of course, I am no longer working that case. So I am fully independent, but Indiana doesn't license investigators, they license agencies. So I am not an investigator at the moment. I am a former investigator as of right now, which I'm okay with. I need to breathe. Like, I'm okay. Breathing is good.
Somebody was asking, like, if you're comfortable talking about, like, about the time of dates when you started working on Alan's case, and also, like, if you're comfortable talking about why you are no longer working on Alan's case.
So when I want to say it was like, I can get the date for sure, but it was July of, hold on, let me look. July 11th of 23 is when we officially started. Um, we knew before then, long before then, that we were going to be working that we were going to be working Delphi. And, we kind of started unofficially looking into things, but we couldn't officially work it until the agency license had been approved, right? And so what's funny, not haha funny, but like interesting, kind of funny, is how long it took our licenses or the agency license to be approved. It took a long time. Like it may have been intentionally slow watts. Not by Jensen, of course, but by the powers that be in the great state of Indiana. That's just a suspicion. Now, I got no proof of that, but it seemed a little off. So, but we had to sit there and kind of, we dabbled, we looked at things, we talked about things, but we couldn't take on discovery until we had that license because, it's against law. So we had to wait. So it was officially July of 23 when we got discovery and we hit the ground hot, boy. When that got here, I was working 50, 60-hour weeks
Yeah,
all
yeah.
summer. It was insane. So, and then me not working
Yeah,
this
I
case.
remember you hit the ground running.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I had to call in favors, man, because you guys were like 6 years ahead of us. Like the lawyers were years, well, the prosecution's lawyers were years ahead of us. The defense lawyers were, they even were ahead of us. So when we had to catch up quickly. Well, I still had to read everything that needed to be read. I still felt that need to catch up. And so for me, the easiest way for me to catch up is to go to the people that were talking, right? And because I couldn't reach out, because I was new and I was new to the case and I didn't know who you could trust. And this case has that really seedy undercurrent of everybody kind of, there were factions and fighting and all kinds of that weird stuff happening. So I couldn't really talk to anybody. So at night, I would sit there. I work a lot at night because I'm kind of a night owl. I would sit there and I would read Discovery and I would play YouTubes. So I was like double learning at the same time because you all knew more than I did, even though I had the proof sitting right in front of me. Like I tell people all the time,
Yeah.
you can believe what you want to believe. I cannot convince anybody to believe differently than they believe. But like I've seen stuff that other people haven't seen. But I could hear at least what the suspicions were, so that then when I read a name that matched, or a situation, it would be like, aha, I know what they're talking about. So it would kind of help to cement things together, and it made it easier for me to catch up a whole lot faster. Like it's almost like instead of me educating you all, you were educating me in the beginning. And that's something that PIs aren't used to that. Like that's a weird change of things. Like you got to stay open minded, but like learning from the public is that was changed from the normal, because I'm used to being the one that knows stuff, and it was a little uncomfortable for everybody in the room to know more than me. Like you can get self-defensive, like you can get defensive, to be like, I know you don't, like, but you can't do that in a situation like this one, because there are 100 of you all, and there's one of me, and there's one of Erica, and there's two Baldwin and Rosie's. Like there, there's only so many of us, and you all can work a whole lot of different directions and through a whole lot more material and a whole lot more hours of the internet than I could even imagine. So it was nice to have that, Well, when we got the ruling, I didn't like leave out of some sense of trauma. Nothing bad happened. There was no arguing, there was no fighting. So it's not like I was like, okay, screw this, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. It wasn't a situation like that. But I feel like I've done what I can do for Rick. And I've used my skill set to do as much as I can do for him. And I feel like my skills will be put to better use if I pivot and and go after cleaning up what is a very icky situation. Like there is, like, everybody knows it, everybody hears the rumors, everybody knows that there is a seedy undercurrent. Like, I would like to leave the city of Delphi and the community, the Carroll County, like, I would like to leave that community in better shape when all of this is done that it was when we found it. So I feel like there's damage to undo, and I feel like there's house cleaning that needs to be done. And I feel like I stumbled into things along the way that I could probably do something with. And so while I learned about it during this time, it won't have an impact on Rick's case. Like, anything that does overlap is going to be off the table for me to talk about, because I'm never, ever going to hurt his chances at an appeal. Like, that is never going to happen. So, like, we had this conversation this week. Like, I am careful about what I say because I don't want to hurt his chances at a successful appeal in any way. And I won't. I certainly won't. So sometimes I have to sit back and think about what I'm going to say before I say it. And because I'm trying to figure in 1,000 different directions, like, could this hurt or is this going to help? And so I want to work on some things that could make things better for a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are being affected by some of that ick. And so I would really like to kind of help clean some of that shit up because it's icky.
For sure. Definitely. Um, so I'm just going to read the questions that were in the last chat, like where we had kind of left off or whatever now. So somebody asked, did we ever find out if the mark on the opposite side of the F was that a shape?
I don't know what she means. The mark on the opposite side of the F. I mean, are you talking about like at the
Did
bottom
that?
of the
I don't
at
know.
the bottom
I'm
of the
not
F?
sure.
Like, there's the up and down of the F, and then there was just kind of like a little trailing. I think that probably that was probably accidental. I mean, the F wasn't
Because
accidental, in my
the
opinion.
way it was explained, like when was the F on the tree, and then this splatter, the six spots of splatter, blood splatter.
Yeah. Um, maybe like the splatter. I don't want to be gross and I don't want to be insensitive, but when you when you cause the wounds that those girls have, things are going to spray, right? So you expect to see some of that. You expect to see
Yes.
some you expect to see some splashing of fluids, like so
Mhm.
I would assume that that's probably where it came from. It could have come from cast off. Like there's a lot of ways that that could happen. It would be really nice if we could all confidently accept the opinions of the blood spatter expert. That would be really nice. And normally in big homicide cases, you can. And I'm certainly not telling anyone that they shouldn't believe the opinions of the expert because you can. Um, I don't. It's not that I believe that they would be untruthful. That's not what I'm saying either. I'm just saying that I don't feel super confident in um, what I heard, but that's just me. That's my opinion.
Yep. And you're entitled to your opinion all day long. Um, you know, for anybody coming in, again, Christine has worked on this case. These are her observations, her opinions, her feelings, her thoughts, her perspectives. She is not speaking for anyone
Mm-mm.
else. She is speaking only for herself. So please make sure that you are kind to not just the guests, but kind to one another in the chat and the comments as well. Um, so the next question that was from the last stream that we had was Christine, have you ever heard of another case of neck wounds like Libby had?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have. Um, usually usually when you hear of like over the top um like this was over the top. Like usually there's some sort of motivation there. Um that I don't know that I heard. I don't I'm stuttering. I'm sorry. I don't know that I heard what I would consider a
No, no
motivation for
worries.
that kind of overkill. So I don't know, but yeah, I have seen things like that before. It's not altogether uncommon. It's usually a spousal situation or you know, a girlfriend that's the victim or something along those lines, family member, somebody that, you have a relationship with. But
Okay. The next question, um, everybody wants to know what Jennifer Auger said to Nick.
so I wasn't there. I am so sad that I missed that. I was not there for the sentencing. I decided that I just couldn't do it. Like I made it through trial and I made it through the verdict, but I just knew that first of all my presence wasn't needed. Kathy was not there, and so the family did not need me there. my being there wasn't going to help nor hurt anything. So I just kind of opted to do as the family did and pay that no credence. And so I didn't attend, but I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall and heard that, because I wonder, you know, having a go at lawyers who are simply doing their jobs is unprofessional. Like, I don't think that I've ever heard that done in a courtroom. And I have watched a lot of trials. I have sat through trials. I have never, even hot tempered, like cantankerous kind of, you don't hear those. You don't hear that done. There was, it is what it is. I just, I would have loved to have been there. Takes a lot to trigger Jen. Jen's, we always we'd sit back and giggle as we watched him, because Andy is a lot like Erica, like personality wise, and Brad. I'm a lot like Brad personality wise, but we both want to be Jen when we grow up, because she's just got that cool and collected demeanor. Oh, but she'll get you. Um, so I wonder. I do wonder. I don't think we'll ever know though, because I don't think that she was probably very quiet. You know what I mean? Like everybody says your mom, you really know mama's mad when she's quiet. So I'm betting she wasn't overheard by anyone. But I wonder. I don't know.
But it's a really good question, though. Like, I would have
Mhm.
loved to hear what was said.
Oh, me
Oh
too.
my goodness gracious. Um, uh, so the next question that was there was, were the girls, is in your opinion, is there evidence to show that maybe the girls may have been transported somewhere else and possibly brought back?
Well, so that was I thought that for the longest time. It's not impossible. So I did not I don't recall seeing anything that would have made me say that that couldn't have happened. But I didn't really see anything that said that that definitely happened either. So so it's definitely not like an open and shut for me. But there is that phone jack being plugged in and then being unplugged later that night. Um, there's that elevation change. Like there's some the the data is really the linchpin of like where those girls were at that day, their comings, their goings. Like we know who they were talking to, and like all of that. We know where they had been, and but then it gets weird at the end. Like the end of their day just got weird because they weren't using their phones, right? So your phone your phone gives data when you use it. So when a text comes in, it uses a tower. When a text goes out, it uses a tower. When you do something with an app that uses data, it uses a tower. So as long as you're active on your phone, like my phone has probably hit a tower 300 dang times today because it's almost Christmas and no, I wasn't done shopping and don't judge, but it's one of those. But my phone has been pinging all over town today. Well, once they stopped using the phone and no more texts were going outbound and no more app usage was there, then then phone data becomes weird because you're using a tower when the pings come in and you're using a tower if like you use iMessage or something. So there's some things that will send signal, but not a lot. And so it's made it really, really hard to track um, where they were and when because they weren't really using it much. So things got a little weird. But I think that during the appeals process,
Okay, I gotta ask you this
yeah, go ahead.
quick question because Sleuthy had a wonderful question and I just saw it in the chat. I'm sorry.
You're
Okay.
fine.
So I got to scroll back up to get to it. Okay. So if you can answer it, can you answer what apps were open on Libby's phone when it was recovered? Was Snapchat in the background or open? And was the camera app open or in the background?
Oh, those are both very good questions, and I don't know the answer to either. It never occurred to me to ask, so I don't know. Oh, but that's a good one. That's a very, very, very good question. Um, yeah,
Okay.
it never
And
occurred
also,
to me to
is it
ask.
possible that the perpetrators could have been used maybe a Faraday bag?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I would do. There was no testimony about Faraday bags, which is interesting because
Okay.
there's no testimony that law enforcement used a Faraday bag either. So take that however you want. But there was no mention of Faraday's during trial. But yeah, so for anybody that doesn't know, a Faraday bag is you know how they sell wallets with RFID chip shields. So when you put your credit cards in the wallet and you close it, other devices can't get at the signal in your credit cards, right? So a Faraday bag is basically a big shield for your phone. So you put your phone inside the Faraday bag, you close it, and then your phone doesn't work, period. It will not connect to a tower. So it can't get incoming texts, outgoing texts. It can't, the GPS doesn't work. It won't accept a ping because the waves that go to the towers are blocked by the bag. So it's basically like this shield that snuggles around your phone and makes it impenetrable. It's like a condom for your cell phone. And they use those for cell phones, beepers, laptops, tablets, all those kinds of things. The reason they do that normally in normal situations at a crime scene, a phone is immediately put into a Faraday bag. It's taken to the lab, and then the phone is immediately plugged in and um, data a copy, it's cloned basically. That way, when they're doing things to the cell phone, like checking messages, turning things on and off. Remember, because during testimony, they said that every time they turned the phone on to do some sort of extraction, they destroyed data. Well, the misunderstanding of common perception is that they were like losing messages or something. They weren't. What they were losing was the last time it powered on, the last time it powered off, the last time it had a signal. So like all of those, sometimes your phone only tells you like one event. Like it'll only tell you the most recent, and then everything else is just gone. So that's the kind of data that they lost, and it's because every time they were powering the phone off and on, um, instead of using a Faraday bag and then cloning. So they were turning this phone off and on to do that is the way that they testified. Now, whether they actually did it the way that it sounded like they did on the stand, I don't know. But I I, I know that they didn't mention using a Faraday bag. But if you wanted to get a phone out of the crime scene with you and bring it back, Faraday bag would be a good way to do that. Um, Interesting. Good question.
Okay. So the next question, and again, in your opinion, do you think that there will be other actors that will be arrested for what happened?
Like, I would hope so. I mean, I would like to see. That's the only way they're going to be safe. Like, if these people are insane enough to kill children, 13 and 14-year-old children, like, it takes a special kind of monster to do that. They don't, that puts the community in a special kind of danger because they're not just going to stop. You don't kill little kids just once just to see what it was like. Um, so that community is never going to be safe unless they do arrest who actually did this. And so, in my personal opinion, again, I'm not speaking for anybody but me. I don't I don't see how one person, any one person, could have done this alone. Like it's it's just not common sense. So at the very least, there's at least one more person. Even if you're of the opinion that Rick Allen's guilty, which I'm of course of not. But even if you did think he was guilty, there's still somebody out there walking free that is capable of killing a 13 and 14-year-old little girls. So at the very minimum, I would like to see at least one more arrest, but I think there's probably several in my mind. But we'll learn more about that coming during the appeals process. They'll be talking, I'm sure they'll be talking about alternate suspects. Third party is going to be huge. It's going to be a big deal.
Okay, next question. So remember we did this on Friday, right? So we had the press conference. Did you watch the press conference?
I did. I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in your opinion, is it telling that in the speeches that were presented, that they included the Flora victims in mentioning during Richard Allen's sentencing press conference.
Yeah. Interesting, huh? Now, for 2 years, they've been
Very.
trying real hard for 2 years to tell us how Flora had nothing to do with Abby and Libby. Like that's been the ongoing thing, is to not conflate those two, and Flora and Delphi had nothing to do with each other. Isn't it interesting that they just had to throw that in there? And I think that tells us about as much as it should. Like, are they related? I maybe. I think we might know later. I think. I think that I'll put it this way. I think that the advocates that are working on the Flora fire, the people that are digging into the Flora fire, should keep digging. And I think that if they thoroughly investigate the Flora fire and they get as far as they can get and they get stuck, that they should just call us and see if we can point them in any helpful direction. Because I don't know Flora like I know Delphi. Know a little Flora, but not like I know Delphi. But I think that those 4 babies, they deserve some justice. Their mother, we can't really do much for the children that are already gone. Their mother deserves to know what happened to her children. And so I put it on the advocates that are working on the Flora fire to not stop what they are doing. But if it gets to a point where they feel a little stuck, give me a call and I'll see if I can't help them out a little. I might not be able to, but I might. You never know. Because we came across lots of stuff that ended up not having anything to do with Rick, but boy, it had to do with a bunch of stuff to do with other ugly stuff. And so I think that people should continue to dig on Flora because that was no accident.
Yeah, because I found it interesting when Doug Carter had done an interview not too long ago, and he was saying that he didn't feel like the person who had perpetrated that crime meant to do that crime, that it was some form of an accident. And that kind of left me a little bit befuddled as to why he maybe believes that that's the direction that the case is taking. I, I don't know. It's very
Well,
strange to me.
so some of the chemicals, that are used to manufacture certain illegal substances are accelerants. And then there's a couple different ways that you can process illegal substances that also, some requires accelerants and some don't. The methods that don't require accelerants are actually more dangerous than the ones that do require accelerants, right? So I do know that in the Flora fire, they did find evidence of accelerants, which is what has everybody saying arson, which, I mean, I agree, it's probably an arson. But could those accelerants be drug manufacturing chemicals, like drug chemicals that were actually used in the manufacturing of drugs? Or could they have been the accelerants used to fuel the manufacturing of drugs? I don't know. Because I wasn't after the Flora. You know what I mean? That wasn't what I was tasked with doing. Um, but it is interesting how those
I
subjects keep
got you.
overlapping.
Next question. Was how much of Abby and Libby can be seen on the video?
Oh, the bridge video. So the girl, so I get the girls confused which one was the one on the out on the bridge and which one was the one taking the camera, because I was in shock when I saw the video. So my brain doesn't remember who was holding the camera and who was out on the bridge, right? Because the first time I saw it was in court the same time as everybody else. The person holding the camera, the girl holding the camera, all you could see of her was her sleeve. So that little shadow that's on the side of the enhanced video that the public got to see, you can see like along the side of the photo, there's this shadow. That's actually her sleeve. So when she had her phone in her hand, the sleeve covered part of the camera. So that's all you can see of that girl. The other girl, I mean, you can see her clear as day because the camera was pointed at her. Filming her was the intention. Filming Bridge Guy was an accident. But filming her, and I don't remember if it was Abby or Libby. Like I've been beating myself up because I don't remember. Um, but I mean, you can tell it's her. You can tell who it is. Um, she didn't look, she wasn't like running terrified or anything. She was just walking along, but you could see her. You could see her whole body.
Um, all right. So when we talk about the enhanced video as far as like the whole bridge video and all of that stuff, um, do you like the programs, how like what was done with all of that? Like I know there was like an extensive amount of stuff, but there was something else that was really interesting about the Hoosier Harvest Store video. Can we talk about both those videos and the enhancements and how those were created,
I
please?
can. Yeah, we can. So, Hoosier Harvest Store had recorded cameras. Then there was the other one that was right across from the bridge. There was another business there that only had live video that was not recorded. And then
Hackers.
yeah, Packers, that's it. Theirs was live only. So, you know, people there were some mentions of what was seen on a monitor inside, but there was no actual photos or videos from in there because it didn't record. Hoosier Harvest Store though, you couldn't really see who was really driving cars. Like, I couldn't. You couldn't really make out plates, but you could tell kind of what kind of car, and kind of you could tell what color it was. Rick's car, or what they're saying was Rick's car. Um, you couldn't tell what kind of car it was. You couldn't tell what year it was. You couldn't tell really anything except for that it was black. And then Rick's car had these open rims, and there were like little spokes. So sunlight showed through the rims. That is what law enforcement used to say, yep, that's Rick's car, because you could see sunlight through the rims. Yep, it had to be his car. No, couldn't be any other car. And they got pushed back on the stand, because what they did was they found out what kind of car Rick drove, what year of car Rick had, what model of car Rick had. And then they ran a report that had the same year, make, model, and year as Rick's car, and then said, see, only, just a couple, or one or two, or I don't remember how many there were, but it was not very many. And they're like, see? And then so when the defense questioned them back, they're like, wait a minute. From this photograph, you can't tell what year. Did you run a report of all of the years that they used these spoked tires? And the prosecution, or the officer, was like, well, no. So they didn't really look for other vehicles. They only looked for how many cars matched Rick's car, instead of how many cars matched the photograph that they had. But, if you're talking slick on the stand, and you're a juror, and you already have confirmation bias that innocent people don't get arrested, you can kind of overlook a little bit of that. And you think, well, they must have had a reason for that. So it kind of, I don't know, it left a weird taste in my mouth. Like, I was a little surprised that they would actually try to pull that stunt in court and try to, like, not get caught. And I think it was Jennifer Auger that caught that.
And can we talk about how Mullins compiled these things, like the screenshots of the harbor store video and things of that nature as well?
Yeah, I think he had photos of the video. I seem to remember that, like, some of them were like actual, like, photos of video. But I don't know that they all were, and I don't remember if it was Rick's car that was one of those, or if Rick's car was actually pulled from the video. I don't really remember. I know that they spent a couple days interviewing everyone that came and went from the area. Like, they set up kind of a roadblock and anybody that drove down that way, they kind of stopped them and asked them, how often do you drive through here? Do you live around here, and whatnot? And so they could get year, make, and model of the people that drove through there the most often to try to help them identify whose cars are who. And then, of course, anybody that admitted to being there that day, they could identify what they were driving. And so they kind of got photos of cars coming and going. They had Kelsey German's car was seen on camera, so they know what time she got there. That also matched the um, cell signal of Libby's phone. Um, and she had been doing some taking photos and texting and whatnot in the car on the way. So like they were able to match some things, when people, if they were on their way to work, they'd double check what time they got to work to try to make sense of what they were seeing with this video, because there were so many people coming and going. One of the things that I remember sticks out to my just kind of sticks out to me because it's so weird. Like, Hoosier Harvest Store, when I first started working this case and first started reading through things, I thought it was a hardware store. Like, I didn't realize that it was just like this grain silo kind of retail ish kind of place. Like, not a lot of people come and go from there because they sell like really specialized farm equipment. Apparently, at some point during that day, there had been some, like, kind of small town good old boy farmer guys that had showed up, one car, and then 10-15 minutes later, whatever it was, um, one guy went in and came back out, and then another guy pulled up, and they had swapped guns. And I couldn't help but giggle because that's like a normal Indiana thing. Like, if you're not from here, that could be really unsettling, but for if you're going to meet somebody on Facebook Marketplace or whatever, you meet somewhere, kind of out of the way, but still kind of public. And so it sounds like these guys were just meeting up to just, maybe they were going hunting, maybe, he was giving his shotgun to Uncle Jimmy Bob or whatever the case may have been. Turned out to be nothing important. But I was reading it thinking, I wonder if they thought, aha, we got it. Except for there was no gun used in this case. But and it was a big old shotgun. It was not anything that had to do with this case, but it still made me giggle because, like, you know, I would have been shitting myself, like, oh my god, I got him on camera, got him taking a gun in the
Um,
store, got
sweet
him.
dude,
Go ahead. What was that?
sweet dude Shibby wants to know: Is there harvest store? Sweet dude Shibby wants to know: Is there harvest store video of BG walking on 300 North at 3:57 p.m. in a blue coat?
You know, you would think there should be, right? No, not that I saw, not that I heard about, not that was testified into court, not that I have never, never, never did I hear anything about Rich guy walking on the road. Now, they they testified, this the officers, like law enforcement as a whole. And because I'm bad at remembering which cop said which part. So law enforcement, their theory is that he parked at CBS, or at the old CPS building, which is down down a ways. It's kind of between Freedom Bridge and um way, like it's closer to Freedom Bridge than it is the walking bridge. It's way over there by the highway, right? So their theory is that he walked all that way. There used to be a different entrance to get onto the trail, but you still have to walk along the road before you get to the trail in front of God and everybody. So I was personally, I'm not questioning anybody's decisions, but I was I wish that the jury had been able to see that scene because it is so wide open. And I know that back when the murders happened, there was still the CPS building there, but you are in the wide open in front of God and everybody. Walking down that street, every car that drove past him would have seen him. Nobody claims to have seen him coming or going um, at all, except for, Bloody Muddy Guy, which was at first Muddy Guy and then Muddy Bloody, whatever. But he was not seen on camera, and no, neither was anyone else seen walking through there, and you would have had to have walked past there. So I don't know how that happened. I don't know. I do know that there was a really, really
Okay.
straight
And
path
the other
between.
question was, were there any,
Nope, you're fine.
sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm so sorry because like the back, sorry.
No, you're good.
Were there any
Fine.
enhancements tried to be done to like the Harvestor video or any other of the footage that was retained?
So I don't I don't think so. I don't remember them saying anything about I don't remember them testifying anything about doing anything to the Harvestor video that I can recall. And I don't remember seeing anything about that that video being changed. Um yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. So another question that was asked was, what convinced you to take this case on?
So in the very beginning, it was just the challenge of it because I have never worked the defense side of things. I have I have never thought about ever defending anyone or trying to prove that someone didn't do something. So that's originally what got me, was that I could try this from the opposite of where I was at. Um and I knew that, I may be investigating someone that's guilty, but, you know, like I said the other day, that didn't really matter to me because my job isn't isn't to prove anyone innocent or guilty. My job is to find facts and send those to the attorney and let the lawyers do the lawyering. And so that was my only goal, was to just dig as fast as I could, as deep as I could, and find anything that could help or hurt, because nobody wants to be surprised in court. either. So that was really, it was just the challenge of it. And that sounds a little not good. I mean, not good, but it's not the love story that people would like to assume, but that was the reality of it. I was just in it for um, the challenge, and then I started to realize that a guy was getting railroaded.
Okay. Um, Another question that was asked, did the defense ever get the footage of the drone camera on the pole at the gate entrance right across from the old CPS building where the red Comet was parked?
So I don't I don't know that that was there. I don't believe that that was there until after the homicides. I believe that may have been placed after the homicides, shortly after the homicides. I think there were a few, I know there were a few placed after the homicides, but I think that might have been one of them. Um, a lot of times there's this there's this belief that killers will revisit the scene of their crime, and so they wanted to see who was coming and who was going. So they there were cameras. There were cameras in several. uh, There were cameras in several places. There were people caught on cameras that were in places where they did not belong. And as far as I know, those people still don't know that they were caught on those cameras. Um, you may hear some about that in the future. You may not. I don't know. Um, but take that for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So uh somebody had a question. So during your time in investigation, you mentioned that you watched YouTube creators.
Mhm.
Um so you were listening sometimes to YouTube for information. Um were there any channels that you found most informative during your journey?
Yeah, actually, I of course watched you. Um, and I watched Rick Snay. I find him very, very entertaining, and he's just a nice guy. Um, I watch Prof. He's controversial. Not everybody adores him, but man, his information is good. His research is very, very thorough. Um, I watch All Eyes, even though I've never spoken to her. Um, oh, I watch Silky Southern Tea. She's one that doesn't really do much controversy, but she's pleasant to listen to. Um, let's see. Like I kind of know who all of them are, and I listen to people on both sides. When I first started working on this case, I watched Anthony Greeno a lot. And then I um, came across his name in print. Um, and so I I started watching him a little less often after that. Oh, I watched R&M. Um, they had a different name at the time, but I did watch them. Um, oh, who else? There's so many good ones. It some of what fascinates me about Delphi. Oh, I watched Defense Diaries, of course. Um, I didn't find Lawyer Lee and the other lawyer. Uh, oh, there's that other lawyer that is so adorable.
Andrea Burkhardt.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's her. I didn't find them until shortly before trial, and so of course I really like them. Um, but the thing that I have found with Delphi is that the size. Oh, and of course Bella and Julie Melvin and Noe and you know that just kind of a mix of everybody. I have found that with this case,
Lana. True.
Lana, yep, I know Lana, I like her too. Especially with this case, you don't, it's not always the great big creators that have the best
Did you ever watch
information.
any Criminality?
Yes, yes. Yes, I like her. I like her a lot, actually. Um, sometimes it's the smaller creators that have really good information because it takes some finesse sometimes to get people to share information with you. Like you they have to be able to trust you. You can't be out blowing your mouth off like a bull in a china shop, ranting at people and calling them nasty names and whatever, and then expect them to trust you enough to give you confidential information. Like you just can't do that. And so I have found that um, the people that are mm, the most trustworthy to me are the ones that are the most trustworthy to people that have information to share too. You know what I mean? Like your channel, it's getting bigger, but you were real small when I found you. But your information is so good, so good. And I had, you know, I feel bad for the public because they don't know whether somebody's information is good. So I feel like
Thank you.
some of
Thank
these
you.
folks just got sucked in and they get drug along because they don't know whether something's true or not. They don't have the benefit of having like the physical evidence. They don't they haven't read the reports, they haven't listened to um the interviews, they haven't, heard any depositions because of the information vacuum here. You kind of have you kind of have a situation where people are just following somebody's opinion because you like their vibe. And that's not the best way to go about it, but that's all you have here because there's an information vacuum. So if you've got somebody, I take a lot of heat because, you know, if you've got somebody like me that comes along and says that that's not what happened, or you know, we know that this was the case or that was the case, there I take a lot of shit for that. But I'm the only one that's seen the discovery. Like, if I'm talking to somebody who hasn't they haven't held a single shred of evidence in their hand, like, you're just gonna my only I can't show you documents, it's against the law, I can't show you photos. It's against the law. I can't give you any videos. It's against the law. So the only thing that I can say is, trust me, bro, you'll see it. You'll see it again later. Like, we're going to get another trial. So you're going to have to watch it in the appeals process. And until then, believe what you want, because that's all I really can say. But most of the time, people are like, oh, okay. Because they know I don't have a reason to lie to anybody, because I'm just a chick doing my job. That's all I did here was my job. So I don't really have a vested interest in lying to anyone. I'm not making money on YouTube. I'm not, you know what I mean? So for me, whether somebody believes me or not is kind of irrelevant almost to me, because I don't have a reason to lie. Like, I don't, you know, I just kind of, I just sigh and think, okay, here we go. Because for 2 years, I have been watching folks just kind of, and they get so upset because they'll yell about this person's not right or that person's not right. And sometimes I sit back and giggle because neither one of them's right. Or they're both right, because sometimes two things that look the opposite can both be true at the same time, depending on how you look at it. So that's just that's my frustration at gall. I will never hold that against anybody, because that is the result of a gag order.
Right. Um, so another good question. So did the investigators learn more about the alternative suspects than we did here on YouTube?
Oh shit, yeah. 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 We know some things that will keep you up at night. Like, if you think, like, I get messages sometimes telling me to be careful. If you think that what you know now is scary, you oh, it gets it gets much worse. It's worse than people believe that it is. And we know much more about who people are and how they know each other and why they know each other, and who knows who, and who's sleeping with who, and who's got kids with who, and who deals drugs to who, and who. It is insane. So when you have like this criminal undercurrent, once you've tied it all together, it's almost like picking them apart is the harder job than putting it all together. So um that's where I feel the need to tread so lightly. At this point, it's not out of fear. I'm not afraid anymore. Um, but it's out of concern for Rick and his future with the appellate process. So I want to make very, very, very certain that while I'm looking at other situations, that it is not going to circle back around and affect Rick in any way, because the players that are involved with Rick, I'm not going near until the appellate process is over, because there's no rush. These murders were 7 years ago. He was arrested 2 years ago, roughly. Um, there I don't feel the need to go out and put my neck on the line to then start calling the alphabet soup agencies and be like, "Yep, time for you to come get a this dealer or that dealer or whatever it happens to be." Um, I, I don't feel like I need to rush sloppy into those situations at this point because Rick's Rick is in a freaking prison and his wife is without him. And so my priorities are to protect the community, but Rick is in immediate danger. So I'll be careful. I'm going to take some time, but it's bad. The situation there is bad. And before anyone takes a go at them, I suggest that you buy some life insurance because it's worse than you think it is. Much worse.
Yeah, I saw that there was an alert that he was being transferred to the Indiana Department of Corrections.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that that's a pretty big thing, overwhelming. Kathy's probably very, very upset right now. I can imagine, you know, um, probably not the greatest situation.
No. She can't call him. She can't talk to him. So when you go to RDC, you can't call. So then um, I think it took a long time after he got to Westville before she was able to even call. And the entire time that he was at Westville, she got 3 visits with him, and that's it. In 2 years, she got to see him 3 times. She didn't get to see him at either one of the jails, only at Westville, and it was only 3 times. That's barbaric. So there's all of that anxiety too, because, you know, she's afraid. She didn't even get video visits. Like, he had a tablet. They made it sound like his conditions were great and he had more freedom than the other inmates. And, um, except, they would do shit like not charge his tablet and not give him his visitation and not let him use his tablet for visitation, which is something all the other inmates got to do. So, there's a little residual trauma from that, I would assume. And so God only knows how long it's going to be before um, they can talk, even. So the situation sucks. It sucks. There's just no better way to put that. It just sucks.
Agreed. So the next question, can you talk about information concerning the autopsies?
I can, I can, but I want to be kind of sensitive too. So I think what everybody wants to know from the autopsy, I think I can probably read your mind and know that the questions are going to be, were there any defensive wounds? No, there were not. Were there any injuries other than the neck wounds? Kind of. Probably not. Kind of. Here's the caveat for that. Um, the only actual things that looked like injuries were the sharp force wounds to the neck, and then Abby had a real thin, like red mark, kind of here, where her chin, under, kind of underneath her chin. But she also had a large branch that had been laid across her neck. So, using common sense, because I'm not a medical examiner or a lawyer, just so we're all clear still. Um, so common sense kind of tells me that that red mark may have been from the branch that was laying across her. It could have been from something else, could have been her hoodie string, could have been, as he was pulling her into position or whatever. I don't know. But she had a faint, it was like a pinkish color. And then there was a wound like kind of on the lip. But it wasn't like big. It was like I hate to call it even a wound, but it was more like a red mark, like from it being pushed on or um bumped up against. How that got there, I don't know. And then one of the girls, I don't remember which, had some swelling at the base of the brain. That there was no outside wound, so it's not like they were hit. And I know from my own education and experience that that can happen if you're catching a cold or if you're catching the flu or if you're getting over the cold or flu or you got a virus um or if you have some sort of trauma. So was that a trauma response? I don't know. But I do know that there was not like a corresponding wound because that was looked for and it wasn't there. So as far as wounds, there's that. Um, there was a full autopsy done with all of the normal things that you would expect: stomach contents,
Was there any
measurements.
indication that the girls fought back?
None. Well, I take that back. There, there was DNA um, later found under from the fingernail scrapings, but I don't recall I don't recall exactly what those results were. I can't off the top of my head recall if they were unable to be used or unidentified. I can't recall. Um, but they were not, but it was not like enough to have like broken any nails. I didn't see any broken fingernails or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, so there was some DNA under there, but there was not like injuries to match that. But one of the girls had really, really short fingernails. One of them was a nail biter. So their nails wouldn't have been broken anyway because the nails were shorter than their fingertips. um, yeah, so the stomach contents, they, weighed the organs, all of that stuff,
Okay.
pregnancy
Um,
test. Neither
Stomach
one of them were
contents.
pregnant. There were stomach contents that were taken. Um, nothing out of the ordinary. Um, they had both probably eaten that morning. So the there I heard and have heard that there's a bit of a
And how
rumor
many
that
autopsies were done?
so the local coroner had a look see, and then they were sent to a university hospital crime kind of crime lab where an actual medical examiner did a full-on autopsy.
Oh, right. So they had 2 autopsies. There were stomach
Kind of.
contents, nobody was
Yeah,
pregnant.
yeah, nobody was
Abolished that rumor,
pregnant.
right?
Nobody was, yeah, there. I've heard some, rumors happen in a vacuum, right? I don't want to say that there were two autopsies, but I do want to. There was a local coroner. Local coroner did whatever he did, and then there was a full traditional crime scene or crime, like a full medical examiner's autopsy done. Um, that was proper because I've seen the, oh my god, it was an 18-year-old unqualified. Yeah, that's not what happened. Just so that everybody knows that's not what happened. Um, so the local may have done what he needed to do, and then they were sent to a proper medical examiner. Um, but yeah, all of the normal things. So the rumors about could she have been dead for days? No. Um, no. That is no. They weren't pregnant, neither one of them. There was no fighting back. No. And that's really kind of as far as I really want to go cuz I you know, regardless of who did what and how, man, them kids still have family and their families have been through plenty. And I would really, really just feel awful if one of their moms or siblings or whatever were to ever have to stumble upon a video and hearing him talking about that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's kind of about as far as I want to go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, um, All Eyes had asked, like, because she was like behind, I'm way behind in questions. Sorry, guys. I'm
You're
trying
fine.
to get through like everything because they're just flooding in. So, All Eyes had asked, with a follow-up question when she had mentioned earlier, had you worked on any other cases that involved vertical wounds to the neck? She said, could you maybe give an example of some of the cases that you had maybe seen that had uh, injuries of vertical wounds to that area?
So, I'm not sure where vertical came from, to be honest. Um, because that's not it. So when you're taller than the person you're deleting, it's going to be more like this, which is what happened. So, your typical what you would see in any movie or TV show is is what we saw. Um, Abby had a 2-inch 2-inch mark. Libby had 3 very large wounds. to her neck. But to me, they were horizontal more than anything. They kind of had an upward trajectory, but that's normal if the perpetrator is standing behind the victim. That that's what you would expect to see, um, just because of the mechanics of how that how that would go. Um, but if Fred Durst killed his um, roommate with a knife in the same way, um, God, there's so many. Like it's pretty cutting somebody's throat's not really rare. I can't really think of any off the top of my head, but I think Susan Tate she might have had her neck cut too. But I mean, it's pretty standard. Like it wasn't. I don't want to say it's standard. God, I sound callous. But you get what I'm saying. Like it was not out of the ordinary. What was out of the ordinary is that one used a serrated knife and one did not. Now, the medical examiner later changed his mind and had an epiphany after Richard Allen was arrested, and it was known that he worked at CVS, that he might have used a work box cutter. But that didn't happen until after Rick's arrest and after it was known that he worked at CVS. But before that, the original consensus was that they were two different weapons, which makes the most sense.
Got you. Um, the next question somebody had was, does Kathy Allen watch any of the Delphi YouTube creators? And does she know that there are a lot of people out there that show her support? And they just want to know if she knows how much love that they are showing for her.
She is very aware at how much support she has. Very, very, very aware. I hope that she is not watching any of the Delphi content. I hope that anytime that it comes on TV, that she changes the channel and watches Puppies and Kittens. And I hope that her YouTube days are watching, you know, monkeys being silly or whatever it is that brings her heart joy. I hope that she is watching anything but this. As far as I know, and I don't like to speak for her, so I won't. But as far as I know, she does not consume Delphi content. But I do know that she has people that she loves and trusts that do consume Delphi content and give her the best parts. And that's a wonderful thing. So, Leads with Love, I will forever be grateful to her for the way that she um, cares for Kathy and the way that she filters information for Kathy. That is a kindness and a mercy that not a lot of people have. Erica does the same. She, they give, they give her updates. And so my sincere hope is that she doesn't watch Delphi content.
Okay. Um, So let's see. We have some more questions. Oh my goodness, there's so many. So many. Um, let me see. Um, in your opinion, do you believe that any of these individuals, perpetrators, may have struck and committed other crimes, killings, or anything like that since Delphi?
Ooh, since Delphi, uh, actually, yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, ooh, I don't think so, but yeah, I think they might have killed one of their own. So possibly, possibly.
Alrighty then. Let's keep it moving. Um, so somebody wants to know, was it actually Libby's phone that was found at the crime scene, or was she using a different phone for the last couple of days?
So is she? Uh, Becky, something was up with Libby's phone. It had to be factory reset. And then I think Becky loaned her a phone, but it was all intents and purposes Libby's phone. So it it had all her apps on it. It had her phone number, had all her same activity, like all of that stuff was hers. I can't remember how long of a gap between um the reset or the switching of the phones. I can't remember how long it had been, but it was long enough that it really didn't change anything for me anyway.
Alrighty then. Now, let's see. Okay. Um, so the next question is, do you, in your opinion, do you think Fields was the original fall guy, but the investigation of him would have led to something that they wanted to keep quiet?
Fields is a funny guy, man. I think we're going to hear more on him. So I don't want to say anything new about him, but I will share my opinions on what is already, you know, they've already talked about him. They talked about him in the Franks memo and a couple of other filings. And so Elvis is not a big shock to anyone, right? Elvis is a weird piece of the story. He told his siblings that he was there. He told them whatever he told them. And then those siblings spoke with officers. Those siblings told officers what they told them. Those siblings took polygraphs and passed them, which doesn't prove that Fields was telling the truth. And polygraphs are not usable in court anyway. But it doesn't prove that Fields was telling the truth. It proves that his sisters believe what he told them. So so let's make that clear before we go around saying that Fields is, you know, they we can't, you can't use science like that to then say, well, it that means Fields was telling the truth, because we don't know that. But he said what he said to them before the girls were found. So I I would love like an hour alone with him. I would love to know where he was, even just a day or two before and a day or two after. I would I would just love to have a conversation with him and just like sit down and be like, "Listen, dude, I don't work for them anymore. Can you just tell me some stuff? Because I don't know. I think he might know some stuff. We'll see." Like, I'm pretty sure his name is going to come up in the future. And so I don't want to repeat any of what he actually said, but he's a funny guy. And so, not like funny, haha, funny, but like funny, funny, like he makes me twitchy, funny. I we're we're all going to have to wait and see what comes of him and his homies that told him he's in a gang now. Apparently, I we'll see. But I do know that one of the investigators was finally able to track him down and serve him, and they couldn't get him to attend. He refused to follow the subpoena. He didn't come to court. I don't know how he would have done on the stand anyway, but boy, it would have been nice to at least try.
Yeah, and Judge Gold didn't make him come to court, didn't send out anybody to go retrieve him, allowed him to ignore a subpoena. That's crazy. Um, so my next question, and I don't know if maybe you can answer this, if you can, can't, whatever. In your opinion, um, do you think anything about what happened with Sergeant Stephanie Thompson and her daughter, um, maybe related or in some way down the pipeline, or maybe is that separate?
Man, it's sus. Like, I I don't know. I I and I really don't. I don't know. But when the people surrounding your case start like mysteriously dying in situations that don't look accidental, I don't want to look like a conspiracy theorist or anything, but it looks hinky. Like, it leaves you feeling some type of way. Like, I don't know, because I didn't investigate that. I didn't investigate that fire. But it smells.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So my next question is, are you able to talk about the in the filings? Remember there was a guy that they talked about that was found deceased, that had been unidentified, and we were able to discern who that individual was. Are you able to speak about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So our discovery, I think it's not really a surprise to anybody that our discovery was a mess. And I heard the lawyers address it. But let me tell you, they weren't lying when
Are
they
you able
say
to speak?
that our discovery was a mess. Like that was not an exaggeration. It's almost like they took hundreds of thousands of pages of paper and they shuffled them like a deck of cards. They threw them in the air and then they jumbled them together and then they said, "Here you go. Have fun." So I was sitting here alone one night, all peaceful and cozy and reading my murder story. And then come across this photo of a dead guy out of the blue. The photo wasn't labeled. It didn't have a case number. It didn't have a DIN number. That's a number that they give, um, uh, like reports. So it keeps your photos and your video together with the original narrative report. It didn't have that. So I had no idea who this dead man was. Well, in my discovery, it was a photo. Well, it turns out when I was reading through the filings, there was a mention of a video. So in somebody else's, their portion of discovery, they had a video. And we were all like, what in the hell? Who is this guy? And why is he in our why is he here? Like, what makes him relevant? And I never did really figure out why he belonged in there. It was weird. I still don't I still don't know like why we had just and it was not a picture of him alive. It was a he was just sitting on a bed like he had just men when they have heart attacks, they'll sit down on the bed or they'll a lot of times they'll die on the toilet. They'll sit down and then they go to get up and then they just die. It looked like that might have been what happened because he just was just kind of flopped back into bed with his arms spread out, like just not injured, not, you know, it was weird. It was weird.
And we know the identity of that man, don't we?
Yeah, we do, but I don't remember his name off the top of my head. Do you remember? Because it was you who filled it in for me. Because I was like, yeah, he's got red
Blaine
hair.
Nelson?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because you're like, wait a minute. Because I couldn't figure it out and described him. And you're like, let me send you a picture. Yeah, that's right. That is who that was. Why in the hell a photo of a dead Blaine Nelson was in our discovery, I have no idea. To this day, still don't know. Somebody else might know why it was relevant, but I don't. It was just weird. But it became par for the course for our discovery. Like we found 70 days worth of missing stuff, but then we would find extra stuff. It was just, I'm sure it was all unintentional. I'm sure it was accidental that that things were so jumbled, right?
Yeah, it's quite odd, right?
Yeah, it's odd for sure. For sure. I think we might have lost Gertie for a minute. She'll be back. Let me pull up the comments.
I think we need to call it for the night
Okay, we can do
right
that.
now and come back and do another segment if we could.
Sure, we can do that. I'm good with that.
Somebody's getting antsy.
Sounds good. Then we'll do this again. Good night, guys.
All right. Thank you again so much for coming and speaking with us tonight. And we'll definitely do this again. Love you. Thank you.
Love you too.
Have a great one.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again for coming out and listening to the stream. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to hit that like, share, subscribe button. We will keep going and digging with all of this, digging through. There's so many questions. We're just going to keep going and digging through, and we can always keep, just going until we get all of our questions asked. And then I want to try to once we get comfortable and in the swing of things, then we can go ahead and we can start figuring out how we're going to collaborate so that we can start making a dent in some things. So thank you guys all. Have a very Merry Christmas, and you guys have a blessed and beautiful evening. Thank you.